Hi everyone, it's Bonita from Pennies to Dollars, and this is a frugal channel. I am a Kansas farm girl. I was raised by Depression era parents, and so I try to share tips and tricks that I learned from them that have supported me through my life, raising 6 children in a rural area and being able to afford the things that I need to afford. I wouldn't say that we have lived extravagantly because I save money for things that are important to me, and everybody has different priorities in their life. I have 6 children. I have 2 stepchildren. I have 14 grandchildren, and we have spouses. And one of the things that I enjoy doing is getting people stuff for Christmas. So the two big splurges, if you want to say that I save for per year is I like to travel. I like to camp, included in travel, but usually we just camp locally. And I like to buy my family Christmas presents. And so those are what I save for all year. And I live frugally so I can do that. But some people are living frugally so that they can survive. And we touch on that all through this channel as well. And so I want to help in any way that I can by maybe even getting some of those creative juices going on what you can do to save money. We have to make difficult decisions when we are struggling. We either have to cut back somewhere or we have to make more money. And sometimes it's not easy to make more money, and sometimes it's hard to figure out where we can cut back. And all of the marketing and the consumerism that is out there, it really pushes us to spend every last dollar on things for convenience and things to make our lives easier. But sometimes living frugally doesn't necessarily mean that we should be buying all those convenience items. And at other times, living frugally means we just need to take a step back and do things the old-fashioned way. And sometimes those old-fashioned ways are actually easier. For instance, we have used a bar of soap since Labor Day. Since September. This is now December 2nd. There's only 2 of us here, and we're still using the same bar of soap. If you think about how much soft soap you would have had to have bought since Labor Day to December, that adds up to more than 1 container, more than 2 containers, when you can buy multiple bars of soap for the same cost and they last months on end. So that's an example of doing things a little older fashioned that will save you money and actually make your life easier because you're not buying it as often, you're not having to throw it in your trash can or recycle it, and it just makes things easier. It's one thing you don't even have to think about. I feel like since COVID and since prices have increased, people are rethinking their spending habits. I feel like people are looking closer at what they're spending. Right now in the UK, I follow some people on YouTube that are going without heat because their heat is costing them about $172 a week just to keep their house warm, and they can't afford like an $800 gas bill per month. So there are people that are really struggling right now, and we have to keep that in mind as we go through. We don't want to be where we don't have any savings, where we don't have what we need. And sometimes making things just a little bit more uncomfortable or inconvenient can be the tricks to save us some money. I did a little bit of research on some different things that we spend money on, and I thought that this might be kind of an interesting topic and also make us think a little bit about where our money goes. For instance, I used to get my hair trimmed about 2 times a year, and that's not very often, but I would only get it trimmed about every 6 months. I haven't got it trimmed at all this year. I had my husband trim the bottom the other day, and I always trim the bangs myself. So I haven't paid for any haircuts this entire year. I always color my own hair. My husband does get haircuts, But one of the statistics, and men have to get haircuts more often. Their hair's shorter, they keep it shorter a lot of times, and it needs cut more often. But one of the statistics that I wanted to talk about is, on an average, men pay $22.74 a haircut, is what they said, and women spend $29.55 a haircut. Now, I usually always went to places like Great Clips, and I think I ended up paying like $12 or $15, and sometimes I would only get like an inch trimmed off, and I thought, this is ridiculous, $15 for an inch of hair. And so I had my husband do it, and he wasn't comfortable, but I have naturally curly hair, so it just will scrunch up and you can't really tell anyway, so it didn't matter. And I was able to save some money there and cut back my budget in that area and use that money in other areas that I needed. Eating out has become huge. It's become so common to eat out and to have a fast food place and all these options just almost on every corner if you're in the city. Luckily, I live in the country, so I don't have all of those options just everywhere to tempt me. But a single person on average spends $3,526 a year on eating out. That equals $9.66 a day. And if you have snacks or eating out in your budget, if you think about $9.66 a day, that equals a large blended coffee at a coffee shop and a small burger and a large fry at McDonald's with no drink using their mobile app. That's what that equals to. That isn't even that much if you put it in that kind of perspective. So it's really easy for a single person to spend that $9.66 a day, especially if they're working every day or working multiple jobs where they're out and about, and it just becomes a quicker, easier thing to pick something up. And so many times we tell ourselves, I'm working really hard, I deserve this. But if we put it in the perspective of, I make $18 an hour, and out of that I bring home $15 an hour, and I'm spending $9.66 a day on food, then you're working more than half of an hour just to buy your eating out every single day. And it really does add up. It adds up to $3,526 a year. So that's just kind of puts it in perspective a little bit to think about. Thanksgiving, we scaled back. We made less options for dinner. We made less desserts. And guess what? We still had tons of leftovers. And it was an adequate amount of leftovers. Sometimes we have way too much left over. We only ended up with like a half of a Ziploc bag of turkey that was deboned, and 2 of those pieces in that half a bag were the legs. So, I mean, we hardly had any turkey left, and we froze that up. We only made 3 desserts, and we had quite a few people, and no one noticed a difference. In fact, my son said normally it is overkill. Normally there's just too much, there's too much food left over, and they all take some with them, and when they leave, we still have too much food that we are eating for the next 5 to 6 days. And I didn't want that to happen this year. I just didn't see a need for it with food costs this high. I went through everything. I determined what I had that I could make without buying a bunch of extra stuff. I had frozen cranberries. I made a cranberry cake. I had apple butter. I made apple butter bread. So I just assessed my situation, bought the few things I needed to fill in the blanks, and we had a very nice dinner with dessert, and no one noticed a difference. Isn't that great? I learned so much from scaling back this year. For Christmas, we are going to do a soup dinner. I'm going to do a few desserts. I'm going to assess what I can make from what I have, fill in the blanks, and I'm going to make 2 or 3 or 4 pots of stew for them to choose from to eat, and then I can freeze up the rest. So I'm already thinking ahead on what I can do to prepare something to make it easier on myself and to spend less money. So I hope that you will be encouraged by that to maybe think about those traditions in your family. I had a few people say, oh, my family would mutiny if I changed up the Christmas menu. I left off the macaroni and cheese. No one noticed. Now, macaroni and cheese might be huge in your family, but no one noticed in ours. In fact, I had to tell them that I'd left off the macaroni and cheese. So sometimes we think that they are going to mutiny, and sometimes they're still satisfied and happy with what it is. Since 2020, apartment rent has almost doubled. And so as we are going through trying to pay these basic expenses, we have to remember non-essential items really raise our budget. They really raise our grocery bill. If we are putting anything in our carts that are non-essential, which means they're not food, we really need to think hard about what could we substitute for those non-essential items. Napkins, paper towels, soft soap, shampoos, detergent. What can we use? Can we cut back? Can we scale it back? Can we use less? Can we change brands? Can we change a format and go from liquid to powder? What can we do to cut back on those non-essential items? Those are the things that really raise your grocery bill when you go to check out, is all of those things in your cart that are not food. So I challenge you to think about what you can do to substitute some of those items when you put them in your cart, to maybe put them back on the shelf and help your budget. One of the other facts that I found showed that women spend about 400 hours a year shopping and about 301 trips to the grocery store. That sounds excessive to me, but I do know people that go almost every day because they don't know what they're hungry for. And not knowing what you're hungry for wasn't ever an option when I grew up. We had what we had. We afforded what we had, and we didn't sit around and say, gee, I'm hungry for this, I'm going to run to the store and buy it, even though I have food in the refrigerator and in the pantry. I think we need to get back into that way of thinking of what do we have, not what are we hungry for. I think that gets us in trouble a lot of times with the eating out, and also with the excess shopping that we do during the year at the grocery store. And then it said that the average American throws away around 70 pounds of clothing a year. And with all of the decluttering videos and all of the downsizing videos, which I totally agree with that, because it does make your life less stressful to have less stuff. I think we have gotten to be a disposable society. Things are so easily replaced instead of repaired. Things are so easily replaced with the newer version or the newer up-to-date version. I remember growing up, there were times my mom would wear clothes that were so threadbare, so thin, that you could almost see through them when she was working on the farm. But she kept those for summer because they were threadbare and because they were cooler. But we wore things until they were almost worn out. My dad would always keep a brand new package of underwear and socks in his home-built camper, and they were for vacation. And the ones that he wore at home had holes in them. Sometimes we joked that his underwear only had the elastic left and he was still wearing it. But we have gotten to be so disposable. If we see a hole, we pitch it. If something is just a little bit off, or we don't like it, or it doesn't fit right, we pitch it. And I want us to be comfortable. I want to be comfortable. So my suggestion is to just make better choices when we buy things. Make sure that they're comfortable. Make sure that you like them. Make sure that you're going to wear them and that they match other things that you have, so that we aren't just bringing them home and then pitching them out. that happens so often with women, that people will bring things home, decide that they don't like it, and then end up getting rid of it later. And I've known people that the tags are still on them when they're disposing of them. So I just think we need to think a little harder when we make our purchase decisions, no matter what it is. If it's a television, if it is a kitchen item, think really hard before you let go of that money. Think about how many hours you have to work to pay for that item. And are you going to use it to make it worth the money that you're spending? And where could you spend that money somewhere else that might make your life a little bit easier instead of buying that item? These are just some things that I think about when I go to let go of the money. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I enjoy having you here. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.